All right, welcome into Starting Nine here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Usually here every Tuesday and Wednesday. Skipped yesterday. We're going to try to squeeze in one more this week. We're going to tell you first about our sponsors. We are going to talk Miami Heat today, so if that's why you come into the channel, you're in the right place. We are sponsored today by our friends over at GetSalise.com. Well, it's actually Salise, but it's GetSalise.com. That's where you go. Use the code 5RSN if you're an endurance athlete. Now, this could be a runner, a swimmer, tennis player, anything like that, or even just a weekend athlete, but you want to be able to play longer. GetSalise.com is where you go. 5RSN is the code. This is how you replace your electrolytes in a healthy way, okay? So you can pound all the Gatorade and the Powerade that you want. You really want the sugar? You're not going to get that with this. So go to GetSalise.com. You get immune support. You get hydration. It's just great stuff, and it's not expensive, particularly when you use our code 5RSN, because you will get 10% off, okay? If you run mini marathons, which we know a lot of you do, this is the stuff, okay? So go to GetSalise.com. Comes in these little packets. It tastes good. It's easy to take. Just try it, okay? Check it out. GetSalise.com, 5RSN. Of course, supporting our sponsors to help support the 5 Reasons Sports Network and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure also you're hitting the subscribe button. You get all the rest of our content on O'Daily. We will have Before Floor an hour before tonight's Heat game, as we always do. Of course, they play the Nets tonight. One other thing I want to mention, check out our Twitter page, 5 Reasons Sports, because on the Twitter page, you'll get information for how to sign up for our new service for 5 on the Floor, which is called Off the Floor. And this is going to be exclusive additional content. We're not cutting anything from what we usually do, but we're going to give you more, okay? We're going to give you previews of episodes, contests, just little, I don't know. Alex and I are at the game and we see something cool that's kind of in an area that we don't usually post stuff on Twitter. You will get that on this new thing that we're doing, and it's $3.05 a month. But you can also get a discount if you do the whole year, and you get a 1-week trial, so you can test it out before you decide to actually sign up. So go check it out on our Twitter page, 5 Reasons Sports, and it's called Off the Floor. All right. Let's get to it. The Miami Heat have a big rest of the week coming up. They've got the Bucks, they've got the Nets, they've got the Sixers, and we've got the standings. And it does seem like most of the national media are not currently aware of the standings, so I'll give them to you. The Heat have won 4 in a row, 20 games left in the season. They have a 2-game lead on the Bulls and a tiebreaker now, which the Bulls cannot recover from because the Heat have a 3-0 lead on them in their season series. They have a 3-game lead on the Sixers, the new James Harden, Joel Embiid Sixers. They can get the tiebreaker if they beat them on Saturdays. They will hold the tiebreaker if they beat the Sixers at home on Saturday. The Bucks, they can finalize getting the tiebreaker tonight. They're 4 games up on the Bucks, the defending champion Bucks. They're 4.5 ahead of the Cavaliers, who, by the way, have beaten the Heat twice. So that would be a tiebreaker problem for the Heat. But at this stage, it doesn't really matter because they're 4.5 games back. Okay, and then in the 6th slot, the Celtics, who are playing well, okay, I sort of counted them out, but they're 10 games over 500. They're 5 games back. They have a 2-0 advantage on the Heat this season. The Raptors, we know the Heat have had some struggles with them. They're 6.5 back. And right now, the Nets are kind of firmly entrenched in the 8th spot. They're 3 games behind the Raptors. Lost to them again. Lost a back-to-back set with them. 3 games back of the Raptors. The Raptors have the tiebreaker on them. And then they are 2 games ahead of the Hornets. And of course, the way the play-in works, the Nets wouldn't necessarily be the 8th seed, even if they finish the season 8th. They could move up to the 7th spot. I don't know if they would want to or not want to. Kind of depends where the Heat, Sixers, and Bulls and Bucks are at that stage. So that's the standings right now. But look, the doubters are still out there. There's no question about it. We're going to get to Timothy Bain here in a little bit. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about facing Giannis and Durant and some of the better players in the league. But first, Manny, do you have that clip queued up from this Colin Cowherd? This is from our friend Simon Smith. He clipped this. This is Joy and Colin together. You guys probably know that I think Colin Cowherd is the worst NBA analyst in existence. Everything is Lakers-centric. He doesn't watch the games, from what I can tell. Of course, he didn't know who Bam Adebayo was. He said during the bubble season that the Heat would max out as a second-round team. Manny, play the clip.
What is your confidence level that the Heat can
win the NBA? I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm way lower on the Heat than everybody else is. I love their coach, and I think they're built for the regular season. I probably have them a spot too low. My confidence meter with them is about a 4. It should probably be about a 6. But here's my thing. Their bench scoring is great, but your bench shrinks in the postseason. Bench scoring's not taking you to a title. So I'm okay with having average bench scoring. You don't win championships because you have the best bench. They do get Victor Oladipo back, and they're playing well. And they played well against the better teams. And so they have 2 stars, Bam and Jimmy Butler. But they both kind of feel 1A to me, not like A. They're not as good as Embiid, in my opinion. They're not as good as Giannis, in my opinion. They're not as good as Harden, in my opinion. Tyler Hero's playing well. He's bounced back year. But this is the classic team that I think is built. They'll win a playoff series. But I think they're going to come up against better players. Their bench scoring won't be nearly as critical as it is in the regular season. So my confidence is very low.
All right, let's get to this. This is not Colin's worst take. Okay. I mean, there's a long list of worst takes for Colin Cowherd. And when I say he's the worst NBA analyst, here's the reason I say that. Is Skip Bayless worse just in terms of annoyance and all that? Yes, absolutely. Okay. Are there others out there who just say bombastic things who I don't pay any attention to? Yes. The reason I say Colin's the worst is because Colin actually pretends to analyze these things. The others don't. Like Skip is just a caricature at this stage, right? I mean, pretty much always has been, but at this stage for sure. But Colin, of the ones who pretends he knows a lot about the NBA, tends to have the worst takes. Okay, now this is not his worst take, and here's why. I've said some of this, okay? And just in this sense, your bench does shrink in the playoffs. And the minutes of the stars go up. And that is why, and I've said this on 5 on the Floor, I think I've said it here. That is why the Heat stars need to play at a high level in the postseason. I think that's common knowledge. It's understood, okay? Eric Spoelstra is not going to play 11 in the playoffs. He never has. The most he's ever really played is 9. He tends to shrink it to 8 or 9. It's Pat Riley who actually said trust 6, okay? So this is their philosophy to a certain degree. Now, I think this team is different, and this team warrants a 9-man rotation, or maybe an 8 and kind of a wild card rotation where the 9th guy flips depending on the matchup. He's going to play more, but he's not going to play 11. He's going to have to play Bam and Jimmy and Kyle and Tyler probably more minutes than he does in the regular season because the other teams, with the exception of maybe Milwaukee, because we know Budenholzer likes to sit Giannis for long periods of time, the other teams are going to play their stars more. Okay, so that is a legitimate take. I think where Colin is off here in calling this a regular season team is that we spent the entire offseason calling them a playoff type team. This team is built for the playoffs. Remember, we all said that, like not just here in the network, but the fans. And why are they built for the playoffs? Because they have playoff seasoned players. Jimmy Butler just took a team to the NBA Finals and went toe-to-toe with LeBron James in the finals in a way that very few players have over the course of LeBron's career. Now, Jimmy had a bad postseason last year. Absolutely. They all did. They hit the emotional, physical wall. They were terrible against the Bucks. He wasn't stupidly locked in. He got outscored by Bryn Forbes, okay? I am washing it out, though. I really don't think you can take anything that happened last season seriously. I said many times, last year was the real fluke season. The bubble season, everybody was on the same playing field. Penalizing the Heat because they have a better coach and they had more disciplined players is not it, okay? Everybody had the same practice times. Everybody was in the same place, the same travel schedules because there was no travel, okay? The same situation with no fans. They all had it, and the Heat came out of the Eastern Conference. Last year, everything was all over the place. It was not an equal playing field, and the Heat were exhausted, like the Lakers were exhausted. Now we've seen that with the Lakers, there was more to it than that. But look, I'm not going to take Jimmy Butler's postseason performance last year as indicative of who he is, in the same way that I don't think we can expect him to do what he did in the bubble either, okay? It's somewhere in between. But you got Kyle Lowry, who was incredibly important in winning a championship with Toronto, overcame the previous postseason problems that he's had. You have PJ Tucker, who just pushed Milwaukee across the line in the finals and in the Eastern Conference Finals. You've added those two pieces. You've got Victor Oladipo, who, by the way, pushed LeBron James in a first-round series if you go back a couple of years. He's one of the other guys to do it, along with Jimmy. He nearly beat the Cavaliers single-handedly with the Pacers. And he looks good right now from everything that I hear. Is he going to be that Vic? No. Can he be 85% of that Vic? I think he can be. So you've added playoff-tested players. Tyler Hero is a playoff-tested player. He went to the finals as basically the Heat's, third option? So this idea that they're not built for the playoffs just because they're built for the regular season is where I think Colin has it wrong. They have proven to be built for the regular season because of their depth. And in that case, I was wrong. Others in the network were wrong. I didn't see this team as having great depth. I saw them having questions, okay? When I tweeted out in the offseason, because I had talked to some Heat executives who said to me, we believe in Gabe Vincent. And I tweeted that out. 70 to 80% of the responses that I got were, they believe in Gabe Vincent? Why? They need to go get a DJ Augustine. They believe in Max Strus? Caleb Martin, he's a two-way. So, look, Heat fans had their concerns about the depth. I had some concerns about their depth. But the reality is their depth has been incredible. And they're getting Morris back soon, too. I hear he's getting closer. Or at least they're getting closer to being comfortable with it. So I don't think that this is mutually exclusive. Yes, they've proven to be a regular season team. But do we think that, say, I don't know, adding 2 or 3 minutes each to Lowry, Hero, Jimmy, and Bam, because you've got to match the minutes on the other team, do we think those 2 to 3 minutes are going to be the difference? And take a team that was a really good regular season team and not make them a postseason team. Look, there have been regular season teams where it didn't translate to the postseason. Okay, you look at the Atlanta team that had 4 All-Stars. And they actually had a really good starting 5 because their best player the second half of that season was DeMarre Carroll, who wasn't an All-Star. And they failed against LeBron in the postseason. And we know, again, that Colin and the rest of the national media have a LeBron-centric view of the world. I covered that series. I was at all 4 games. I was covering the Cavs that year, okay? I got sent up there by Bleacher Report. Never do that to me again. And when I was covering that series, I liked the Cavs because I was like, okay, with the Hawks, like, who do you trust at the end of games? Millsap? Teague? Horford? You going to run all your stuff for Kyle Korver? No. But look at that roster compared to this Heat roster, okay? This is the fallacy. So you take a team like that and you use that as an example of a number 1 seed that never goes anywhere. Or like Utah has been a number 1 seed, right? And you knew they weren't going anywhere because Rudy Gobert is a fraud in the playoffs, okay? But compare that to what the Heat have. With all the late game issues that they've had and the pounding of the rock that Jimmy Butler does that none of us like, okay, at the end of games where he gets away from everything he's done the entire game that was good, okay? With all of that, do we think that Jimmy Butler is more trustworthy in the postseason than, say, Al Horford as a lead option? Do we like Bam more than Paul Millsap in those situations? Tyler Hero over, I don't know, Jeff Teague? Well, let's make it Kyle Lowry over Jeff Teague. One of them's going to the Hall of Fame. Tyler Hero over Kyle Korver? Is Tyler Hero able to create a shot better than Kyle Korver can? So this idea that just because other teams that played well in the regular season and won 55 to 60 games, which looks where the Heat are going to fall, right? Somewhere in that mix. They've already won 40. They got 20 left. I don't know. They could win 53, 54, 55, something like that. I don't think anybody would be surprised. Just because they've proven to be a good regular season team does not mean they can't be a good postseason team. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about more in the Giannis question here with Timothy Bain as we bring him in. I want to tell you about one more sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. It's our friends over at Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale. Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale is where you want to go. You go to the website by that name, also the YouTube channel. Not the YouTube channel, but the Instagram page. If you live anywhere near Las Olas, so if you've been to Las Olas, you're familiar with their work because it's all over the place. It's also all over South Florida. See Piazza? A lot of people have been in that restaurant. It's like the only nightclub on Las Olas that you could go to. They did their sign. They did many, many other signs. They also do the sign repairs. They do the trade show displays. They do just about everything. They do a great job from beginning to end. Look at the vehicle graphics. Like you can do that. You got a food truck. They can do that for you too. Again, they do the sign repair and the maintenance. So go to signsbrowardfortlauderdale.com. The phone number is 954-791-8685. 954-791-8685. Reach out to Chris and the rest of his team over at Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale. And again, check out the Instagram page as well. Mention 5 Reasons and you will get a discount. All right, let's bring on our guy all the way from the Bahamas. He was our Bahamian correspondent during All-Star Weekend. I don't know. Are you going to pay Jimmy's fine?
But
Are you going to pay Jimmy's fine for blowing off All-Star Media to come down to your beautiful place?
Jimmy's fine is half of what I make a year, so no, I'm not going to pay Jimmy's fine.
Well, he said that PJ Tucker needs to pay half of it, so maybe you could afford it because if PJ's going to cover the other half,
yeah, I'll pay the fine to get for the Uber to get back from the gym to the airport. I'll pay for the taxi.
Oh, well, that's nice of you. You can check out Timmy with Brian Fonseca on Bahama Rican Boys. They had Tony Schwartz on this week, so check out that episode. That's here on the channel. I was going to talk a lot of Giannis with you today, but the Colin Cowherd thing got my attention. And I will say this, because with Colin, I'm always expecting the worst. Full disclosure, I used to appear on Colin's show. Like he used to do that that around the horn. I don't know what he called it, around the world or something. And I was a regular spot on that. Like I've never met Colin. I don't have a problem personally with Colin. I just think he has terrible basketball takes typically. And he changes his mind all the time.
Frequently.
Frequently. Well, actually, he has terrible football takes, too. I mean, the Tua thing, he's reversed his course. By the way, happy birthday to Tua Tagovailoa, which I'm sure people on Twitter will take well because they'll say that Justin Herbert had a bigger cake. So everybody enjoy that on Twitter. But this isn't, I will say this is not Colin's worst take. Because we do know that playoff basketball is different. He's making a distinction that is legitimate. I just think he hasn't watched this Heat team. That's where I come in.
Yeah, I think we said from before we even watched the game, this team would be a great playoff defensive team. Like I don't think nobody doubts that. I do think the people who haven't watched the games think that, okay, look at the team. How are they going to create in the half court? I just listened to Zach Lowe last night, and he dedicated a whole segment here, guys, you don't know about the Heat, and basically Lowe's only point was, how will the Heat score in the half court? So and if you only watch the fourth quarters for Miami Heat, you legitimately might fear how can they create in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. But Zach Lowe did say he sees that they're trending right. And we've said a bunch of times, if Hero plays how he has been playing this season, I don't think you have an issue. So I do think it's a legitimate gripe, but it's not like, oh my goodness, they're going to get swept. They're going to be the Hawks. Like, you made a good point. Lowry is better than T. Hero better than the Cuff. Like, you could tell in the playoffs that team, the Hawks, the Jazz, those teams were not going to do anything in the playoffs. You could tell. What did he do in the regular season translates to the postseason. And for sure, on the defensive side, the Heat do not like pace. People say, the game slows down. The Heat love to make it dirty and mucky and disgusting, and they love that. Like, they thrive on that. So maybe is there a chance where 1 or 2 games you can't generate the offense because they're trapping Hero or giving Jimmy a bunch of space? Yes, but Spo is the best coach in the NBA for a reason. So there's legitimate issues, I guess you could say, trying to see how they score in the half court. But I don't think it's going to be a meltdown.
It's interesting you talk about pace. I think it's a great point. Because I've said that the Heat can play any style, and they can. They can go big, they can go small. But the one thing they don't want to really do is run. And it's funny because I said it before the season, and I think I want to bet. Actually, I'll have to talk to Alex and Brady about this because before the season, they were talking about pace. And I said the Heat will finish. I think we lost Timmy for a second. That they lost pace, or excuse me, they said that they're going to push the pace. And I said, no, there's no chance they're actually going to push the pace. They'll finish in the bottom 5 in pace because these players always say they want to run and they don't run. And Jimmy's going to want to slow it down. And all the the Kyle Lowry hit-ahead passes in the world are not going to really accelerate the pace. And here we are, and I think they're 29th. They were 30th last week, but 29th in pace. So they don't want to play fast. So actually the adjustment, as Timothy was talking about, to the playoffs where everybody plays slow is right up their alley. What I was just getting at was I think I have won a bet with my co-hosts because I think Alex said they might get up to 15th in pace this season.
I remember that, right? Well, how far are we up now?
30th.
Yeah.
Well, it might be 29th. I'll have to check. But yeah, they don't want to play with pace. Okay, they don't.
And I think people they see the Larry hit heads and see Hero in the game. They think, oh man, this Heat team is playing fast. No, they're not.
Just because Duncan is running from sideline to sideline trying to get a dribble handoff doesn't mean they're playing fast. Okay, it's about how quickly you shoot, or how quickly the possessions go. And they don't want to. And even Kyle, I mean, the occasional relief hit ahead pass, there's not going to be a ton of those. And athletically, I mean, this is not an athletic team. They have two athletes, Bam and Caleb. Okay. The rest of the team, as I said before the year, they're built horizontally, not vertically. They take up space. PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy, they're wide bodies to a certain degree. They play in that kind of physical sense. Even Max Strus is physically built. Like they're not. Yeah. This is not an above the rim team.
They're not jumping up the gym.
No, yeah. And so in the playoffs, like okay, for a relief basket, sometimes you need that. But what was the last really high flying athletic team that won a championship?
Maybe the first ring of the big three. I don't know.
That would be it, right? Like, I mean, go back. I mean, okay, what have been most athletic teams that have been successful recently? The Phoenix, like the 7 seconds or less team.
Yeah, and the most they didn't even make it to the finals.
They didn't make the finals. Those San Antonio teams were not athletic teams. The Lakers team that won 2 years ago was not an athletic team.
They just hit a lot of shots, like 80
that they'll never hit again.
They were Tim Duncan from the mid range.
Yeah, well, and the Lakers 2 years ago were bubble frauds, as we know. So I mean, this idea that they're not built for the play, I think it's really just built on one factor. Colin knows the names of the other players better than he knows the players on the Heat. And right, that's it. Like, and you look at some of the guys he's mentioning. So let's pivot to this week because they're seeing three of these guys this week. They're seeing Giannis tonight. And obviously there's other good complementary players there with Middleton and Holiday in particular. But then then they're going to see Durant probably on Thursday, even though they won't see Kyrie. And then on Saturday,
even though he's not a factor,
or I don't count him. And then on Saturday, they're going to see Embiid and Harden. So this is all about names that they know. So I'll ask, let's go through all of these. Okay. What is your answer to the question? We put this on the podcast the other day. What is your answer to the question of who is most dangerous as an individual player to the Heat in the playoffs? Who has the chance to elevate their game the most, to create the most problems? Because I mean, we had a top three. We did not have a consensus on who was one. And they see all three guys this week.
Yeah. So I listened to the pod. To me, I think it's still Kevin Durant. I think I have the Kevin Durant is maybe a top 3 player in the NBA. But if we end up seeing a Kevin Durant in the first round, I still do not fear that team. They're tiny. Drummond got hurt last night. I don't think he's going to. I think it's going to be serious, but it's not going to be a factor.
Right.
I am terrified of Kyrie, like what he did us last week. But I'm in the sense of if we play a 5 can't pick on team, we have a good chance. Larry, Depot, Jimmy, Tucker, Bam. So the one singular player I fear is Durant. I love Embiid and Harden. I do not fear those two in a 7-game series because I know Alex wanted to go to a 3-1 so dark Embiid and Harden could lose, but I think my blood pressure could take that. But we do know that Harden disappears in the playoffs. We do know once the whistles get swallowed, he does not produce at this regular clip. We haven't seen what Harden does without the ball in his hands. Embiid gets tired. I know they're saying he even though he's been MVPing this year, he's saving some stuff for the defense for the playoffs. But Embiid always gets tired some way, somehow, or God forbid, sad to see him get hurt. So I think it's still Giannis. What Giannis did against the Suns, I think was special. Back against the wall, he made like 17 free throws. And because Giannis affects both sides of the ball. So even though we saw Giannis basically take out Jimmy last playoffs, Bryn Forbes scored more than Jimmy. I fear Giannis because of the two-way potential. That not only is he a force on the offense, but also defense. But I look forward to what this bomb does against Giannis. But yeah, it's still like individual player, like who I have a heart attack who has the ball, KD. But overall, for a series, like every day, every night, I'll still go Giannis. So I'm still back and forth between Giannis and KD. But the Sixers guys, I do not fear.
Well, I'll say this about the Giannis thing, though.
I'm sorry you're feeling that way.
I don't know
What was that coming? What? I'm sorry
why
you're
series
feeling
or
that
like
way. What do you have? Like a little parrot that says
that's
that behind
that's
you,
the
like
thing.
criticizes your takes?
I don't know. I didn't know Siri was such a basketball fan.
I'm sorry you're feeling that way, Timothy. Look at that. That's Kevin Durant has chimed in here on the conversation because you picked Giannis. I like that. Listen, live. I wouldn't say live. This isn't even live television. I don't even know what this is.
This is amazing.
That was pretty good stuff. But just to close here, they do have someone who's very familiar with Giannis now, and it's not just that they have PJ Tucker; it's that the Bucks don't.
Right. And it didn't
and
in any way.
I just think looking back at it, we're going to be talking about this being like one of the all-time Pat Riley masterstrokes, like because it's not just that you added this player to your roster who has fit in perfectly. You took him from the team that you're chasing, and I can tell you that in talking to people with the Heat all year, it's still the Bucks for them. It's still the Bucks. When you talk about the people inside the organization, yes, is there fear of Durant? Particularly, yes. Okay, no question. Okay, and they've said to me, look, there's a concern that he could go like D Wade 06 on you. Okay, and because he can do that. Is there fear of Philadelphia Nets? I mean, excuse me, Philadelphia. I think we have to see how these things play out. But it's always been about the Bucks, and with the Bucks, it's literally taking away a player who was so important to them, and a guy who went against Giannis every day in practice. And now you've got him here. But I'll finish here with Bam because we did an episode of defensive, about his chances for Defensive Player of the Year today. And I do think that the national media, at least, is still putting him in the box of being kind of offensive role player. Like, I don't think that anybody's paid attention to what's happened the last 2 weeks. And I know to a certain degree we have to see it repeatedly to believe it. But do you think it's real? Because that changes this whole equation of the starters having to play more minutes and relying more on the stars and all that in the playoffs. If Bam Adebayo is going to be the Bam we've seen the last month, I'm not putting him with Durant or Giannis, obviously, as a scorer. But you rely less on Jimmy in a lot of ways, which I think is really positive. And I do think it changes this team's ceiling.
I think and hope that this playoffs becomes Bam's and Heroes welcoming party. And if your two youngest stars are having their best postseasons, the vets have less stress and could focus more on the other things. So yes, I think the path is if Bam does this in the playoffs, play more games. Jimmy has better legs for those jumpers he wants to do in the game. Jimmy can play free safety. Larry and I think I can't remember which who I listened to yesterday. I listened to like a bunch of podcasts yesterday between 5 reasons and basically 5 reasons. Said that Larry when Kawhi, it was low again. Said when Larry first came, he refused to shoot. Like he was like protesting Leonard. But in the playoffs, he went crazy. He said the same. Right now, Larry's making sure Bam has confidence, Duncan has confidence, Hero has confidence. But when the playoffs come on, the lights turn on, Larry knows how to kill. Larry is a pit bull. So I've seen Royals to dedicate like 3 clutch quarters to Larry's game, says they want to play better. I think Larry is going to turn into prime Larry, which is maybe just 2 years ago. Like I feel Larry is going to be a different player in the playoffs, which makes everybody's jobs really easier. I think this team's going to even shock us who watch every single day. Like I think we're going to be shocked at just how perfect in some senses this team might be. Like we might see like 5 possessions straight where they just shut down a team and execute beautiful offense. So I'm actually kind of optimistic about our chances just because this Bam thing has now been 12 games. It's not 2 nights, it's not 3 nights. It's not because while people were out, like everyone was in, and Bam still was like going at guys. So I do think this Bam changes the equation. Like you guys had said, like we had to say no ceiling. If Bam does this, there is no ceiling because then because all the focus you put on guard stopping Bam there, you open up a Larry, you open up a Hero, you open up a Jimmy. So yeah, it's going to be. I think Bam is the key to this equation.
Yeah, I think he unlocks everything for them. I really do on the offensive end. And look, you can close games with defense. We talk about those Pistons teams. They closed teams with defense, okay? They did it in different eras. They did it also. And if you want to draw a comparison, instead of drawing it to the Hawks, Draw to the
Both
Pistons
Pistons.
team that won championships. I mean, with the
Mhm.
balance, the ability for multiple guys to finish, there's a lot of Chauncey Billups and Kyle Lowry in terms of the way that he approaches the game. And again, they could put out 5 guys at the end of games who could lock you down. This team is going to have the ability to do the same thing. Timmy, we appreciate it. You can follow him there. You can see it there on Twitter and also on Bahama Rican Boys with Brian on Mondays. Thanks to our sponsors, PrizePicks.com. Use code 5. Get your initial deposit matched. PrizePicks.com. Use code 5. We'll be doing a show later today to get you ready for Heat and Bucks and also Heat and Nets tomorrow. Heat and Sixers on Saturday. Brady and I, actually, Alex and I will be at that one. He's a little hobbled right now, but he'll be fine by Saturday. And Greg should be back with us on 5 on the floor. He's a little sick. We're dropping like flies at 5 on the floor, but we have enough. Thanks to our sponsors, GetSalis.com. Use the code 5RSN and also Signs Broward, Fort Lauderdale. And thanks to Manny Chang for producing. Happy belated birthday, Manny. I'm getting out.